After wasting all of my energy, leaves, etc., we need to have this conversation. KANE needs to have a buff, or a change at the very minimum. And before you get out your pitchforks, he's good for this, good for that, let me explain what I mean. First and foremost, if we want to go over KANE's strengths, there's a few, right? He has greater attack buff, terrific. He activates Enrage immediately after using his skill 3, which is also great. He's not like MLK Ron or even this upcoming MLU Fiend who kind of need to like get hit a bunch or activate some weird mechanic and then get to use their big shiny, you know, special effect. He can't be downed with his skill 2. He has K-Ron passive, so he gets immortality and he gets vampirism. He ignores ER bleed on S1 after you have Enrage. He cleanses himself as well on his skill 1 while also doing an AoE attack that does decent damage. All in all, his kit is great, so what exactly am I complaining about with this character? Well, first and foremost, PvP wasn't really tested. They didn't even include PvP with him, so it was a bit of a weird position where you can only assume that they want him to be used in PvE, which makes sense because he's a fire character and it looks like they're trying to use him for Rift. Now, if we just go into his flaws real quick, first and foremost, he's not limited, which means that for the majority of players, this is a character that if you get off of Covenant Banner, or if you get from a random summon, but otherwise it's not a priority character, you should probably skip on him. And in all honesty, if I wasn't doing it for content, I would too. If it wasn't already clear from the countless videos that I've made or any other video that you guys have seen, he's also just not necessary to clear Rift. And to add insult to injury, if the main point of a character being released is the clearing of a new piece of content, or if the only way that you can clear a new piece of content is with the new character, that is terrible game design. That's not good. That's probably bordering on predatory, because that's basically saying, hey, we're gonna wall you off from this content, and the only way that you can clear it is assuming that you pulled a new character who's not limited and has no PvP usage otherwise. Now, the first thing I know people are going to say is that not every character has to be PvP, and I understand not everything revolves around PvP. In fact, I think probably a majority of the player base only focuses on maybe Guild War, Arena, or just flat out PvE, doing hunts, Wyvern, etc., pulling the waifus, anything in between like that. So I do understand that PvP may not be the most important thing ever. However, similar to what they did with Brig, I think it was a missed opportunity, or it is a bit of a shame that they didn't at least try to showcase some sort of team or some sort of direction in which they tried to use KANE as a damage dealer, a buffer, a utility, just something. But before I go a little bit deeper on why these are such significant flaws, we do kind of have to address the elephant in the room, which is Rift. If you guys have been living under a rock, this is the newest PvE content that has come to EpicSeven. Now, while there are a few things that I definitely appreciate when it comes to the return on investment when it comes to Rift, none of them kind of outmatch the flaws, the gaping flaws that come with the content. The first is that it costs too much energy to enter, and furthermore, they have this weird fail chance thing that they've never added ever before. If you fail in EpicSeven, it usually refunds you your energy, but in this case, for some reason, if you fail 3 times, you consume any energy that you've otherwise put into the hunt, which is just so terrible. Why would you do that? Furthermore, if you even want to be able to farm this efficiently or without kind of like gouging your eyes out, you do kind of need to invest deeper into the content itself in terms of energy and gear. Personally, I found it really difficult to fail after level 8, but the energy consumption and all the energy that I was using, even as an endgame player, was kind of ridiculous. I was probably using anywhere between 120 to 200 energy at level 8, which is ridiculous, even though, you know, I was one of the first people to start doing it, and as optimization kept going on and on and on, I obviously took less and less and less. However, at the start, and for most players, they don't really know what they're doing, and this is just going to be 200 energy that is poof, like out of the you know, gone. You'll never get it back again. Now, if the mistakes with Rift weren't enough, I was also thinking to myself, like, well, can you use this in other PvE content? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel that isn't just PvP? And the answer is kinda no. Because in all honesty, if you're trying to use them in Grass Expo, well, you kind of want the characters to be AoE so you have immunity and you don't have to cleanse as much and you don't get all the poisons and all that jazz. And then maybe I thought to myself, what if you wanted to use them in Golem? To which I also just thought to myself, that we're trying to convince people to do Golem in 2023 when they probably need to be doing hunts or something else. All in all, I couldn't think of another location that you could really use him. So if you were going to use him, even unlike Brig, where you could maybe use him for Wyvern, or you could maybe use him in Expeditions, and he's really great at either, this is a character that is pretty much only good for, presumably, this rotation of Rift, And they didn't even try to show him in PvP, which again, I know I'm not trying to harp on, but if Smallgate isn't willing to try the character in PvP, that usually means we're not supposed to try him in PvP either. That was the case with Canna, that was the case with some other characters, and obviously there's a reason why they do it, so it is what it is. Now, if we double back to the flaws real quick, again, I know that his kit itself is not really the flaw behind KANE as a character. It's the fact that you aren't going to get him very easily without just being lucky. And ultimately, the thing that frustrates me the most is just the fact that for all intents and purposes, this should be a connection character just like Canna. I've juggled this idea around in my head several times about who's worth pulling for, who's not worth pulling for, and for some reason, whenever it comes down to it, the only thing I can think of is that if you're going to make a character completely PvE based, there's no reason to not give some sort of difficult quest or have another way to pull for the character, because ultimately, knocking someone out of PvE and not being given any love in order to be used in Arena, Guild Wars, or RTA at all, any other content, it's only just this one piece of content. That seems a bit unfair. And so for me, I think that if they were to make KANE a connection character, a lot of the flaws and issues that I'm talking about here would simply go away. Because kind of similar to how a lot of people are now picking up Veronica since she's a connection character or an easier to obtain character that you can now deal with characters like Kayron and BBK with, this is another one of those scenarios where we could have just had an easy answer to a niche situation, or we could have had a really good character that would have done like a specific niche extremely well, and we just needed to put him in connections. That's it. So I apologize, guys. I know that this is like a bit of a rant, and I'm kind of just frustrated because if you didn't know, like I've been doing Rift for now about 2 to 3 days using Sky Stones even at this point, just to see how good it is at 21. And ultimately, I can't imagine that getting KANE is going to be the difference between me clearing in 2 as opposed to me clearing in 1. As I've kind of seen, it just looks like the character does about equal, if not a little bit more damage, I guess, than Jacko. But ultimately, am I going to pull a whole extra character just for Rift? And should you? The answer is no. But realistically, you have to ask yourself, should you even pull for this character? Am I even going to pull for this character? And the honest answer is that I'm pulling him for content. And I don't know many people who are going to pull for this character unless if you are insanely in love with his kit or his design, both of which are valid. However, for me, I think that in terms of recommendation, in terms of how they design this character, it's just unfortunate because at least with Bree, you could argue that the character was god tier. For like honestly god tier for expeditions or certain PvE, or change the game when it came to, you know, certain pieces of content. This character, it's for seasonal content that you can't use in anything else, and you can't even try and cope and use him in PvP. What are we doing, Smallgate? All in all, guys, again, I apologize for a bit of the rant. However, I think there's just so much potential here with either him being a connection character or with him being something more usable in PvP, because his design, his kit, everything looks really nice. So this is my plea to you, Smallgate. Please do something about KANE, otherwise he's just going to be another character that's forgotten. However, anyways, guys, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like, comment, turn the notification bell, subscribe. Let me know what you think about KANE, if you think he needs a buff or a change, a nerf. He doesn't need a nerf. But let me know what you think about him, if you think he's fine, if he's not, etc, etc. I'll see you guys on the next one. Make sure to check out all my socials and all that jazz. Adios.